Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today with some retro 1950s Christmas cards featuring the October 2019 My Monthly Hero main kit of the month as well as add-ons. I am in love with this kit of the month. I think it's so super fun and I can't wait to share some additional cards throughout the month using add-ons from this release. I've got 3 cards to share with you today. All of them are going to feature some reactive inking backgrounds and then fun main kit and add-on images to create some scene cards. We're going to start with the main kit and the Pop Art Fancy dies. And for this, I'm going to take a background. This is some regular Nina heavyweight smooth white cardstock, and we're going to tape off or mask off about 3/4 of an inch along the bottom edge of this background scene. Then we're going to ink the background with lemon drop first down there near the post-it tape. This is really just going to give more of the illusion of a lighted landscape. And then the night sky is going to be created with Splash and Blue Hawaii Reactive Inks. Now I'm going to have to work a little bit harder to get a nice seamless blend here, but it's definitely worth the effort. You can see when I first apply the colors, it's like 3 stripes of colors basically, and that's definitely not the look I want. I do find that by using some ink blending tools, the results are much better than using maybe a foam adhesive. So blending brushes, pardon me. The blending brushes really work well. So then I am going to kind of blend that in. I pulled the blue down into the lemon drop ink, and then I'm going to create some rays coming up from the ground. Now, kind of ignore the placement of my post-it tape here. I actually had to redo this because I didn't particularly like how it looked, but you get the general idea, and I didn't videotape me redoing these rays, I guess. So I use post-it tape just like this, but I'm just going to change the position, which you will see in the finished card. This is sea salt reactive ink, and it really works great to create that illusion. I buffed that ink. You can kind of see how the rays are different there up above. And it works to create the illusion that light is coming from that Pop Art Fancy sign. Next, we are going to take images from the main kit. Love the car image from the main kit. So we're going to use the car, the tree, and gift packages from the main kit. We're going to stamp those with the Hero Arts Intensified Black ink. This ink is Copic ink or alcohol ink friendly. And then we are going to color these in with Copic markers today. I have listed the Copic marker colors I'm using across the bottom of the screen while I'm coloring, so that if at any time you want to reference exactly which colors I'm using, you can find that information there. Went pretty traditional with the car, coloring it in red. This is a Christmas card, and I really kind of wanted, while it's definitely that pop art deco retro kind of vibe, so really bright and colorful, I always kind of think channel the big kind of strands of light bulbs, the colorful strands of light bulbs, where a lot of white lights tend to be more popular nowadays. I always think of those big colorful bulbs, and that's kind of where I pulled the colors from for my card here today. Another little tip, when I got my kit in the mail and when I pulled all of the add-on sets and things out, I was looking for inspiration. And like many of you, I went to Pinterest and I typed in, I think, 1950s retro Christmas. With that alone, it pulled up so many fantastic images that I could be inspired by. The lighted sign with the kind of dark night sky background and then those rays of light coming out I created with the sea salt reactive ink, that was inspired by an image that I found on Pinterest. So you will be able to maybe find some inspiration pieces on there. In fact, all of my cards are inspired in some way from images I found on Pinterest. The astronaut, Santa, and reindeer, they had something kind of similar. Not really, it's not those exact images at all or anything like that, but just kind of some similar imagery that you can really be inspired by. And then, of course, the Meowy Christmas card I'm going to share with the cat and the Christmas tree and everything with the bright pink background. Lots and lots of cat-themed retro kind of 1950s cards. So that was easy to find inspiration for as well. I'm finishing up my car. Did some little blue-green tin and then some light grays on the windows, but we are going to cover those windows with crystal lacquer to give them more of that glass-like look, but I kind of just wanted to reinforce the feeling of glass here. I love that the trunk is open because that means you can tuck some packages and things in. I picked 4 package images from the stamp set. We're going to have 1 kind of coming up out of the trunk and then 3 down on the ground back behind, almost like they're unloading the trunk there. And then the tree, while could be used with the fireplace and other images that come in the main kit, because that main kit, y'all, is just packed with great imagery. You can use it as a tree in that scene, but I decided to use it on top of the car. I thought that would be a really fun touch. So I'm going to color this in with some greens with G24 and 28, real simple, quick coloring. And then all of the Christmas bulbs on the tree are going to be bright. So reds, yellows, blues, pink, purple. Definitely going bright and rainbow with my tree coloring today. And then we're kind of skip back over to one of the packages and we're coloring this one. We colored the bow with reds. We're going to color the package with pinks, red, violet 52 and 55. And I'm just adding the rest of those colors to the Christmas ornaments. And adding a little touch of glitter with a Sakura Stardust glitter pen. That I will also finish after that. That's going to give them a little glitter. But then I'm going to put some crystal lacquer on the Christmas ornaments as well, so they're nice and glossy. This package is going to be colored with B05 and 16. Then the bow for this package will be in some yellows with yellow 11, 1935. We have a pink bow on another package, which again is RV 52 and 55. Purple for the main part of the package. This is V0, 6, and 9. And our final package is going to be colored very traditionally with reds and greens. So we'll go back to like our 24 and 29. And for the greens, we'll use some of those same greens we used for the Christmas tree with G24 and 28. Then we're going to take the coordinating dies that come with the main kit, and we're going to die cut all of these images. So I've laid everything out on my card. I want to make sure everything's going to fit the way I think. I like to do any heat embossing before I attach things to my card if possible. And that's just so that the embossing powder doesn't get stuck to any area that I don't want it. In this case, I have quite a bit of heat embossing to do. I want to use Merry Christmas from the main kit and some of the star and kind of glittery light and snow, kind of more retro snowflake images on my background. So I'm going to put this in my MISTI. I'm going to figure out my placement, and then I'm going to stamp these images and sentiment using the Hero Arts Embossing and Watermark ink. I love this ink for heat embossing. It is fantastic. And then I'm going to heat emboss with Hero Art's white fine detail embossing powder, which is going to give us a nice bold white sentiment and sparkly stars in the sky that complements not only the white outline of our die cut images, but that white band across the bottom of our card. I chose to leave it white and not color that in or anything, and so it ties together really nicely. I will also add some additional star and snowflake images in the rest of the card using that main kit. And I'm just using my Pop Art Fancy Dies signage as a guide. I don't want to stamp stars that are going to be completely covered up with elements on my card, because that kind of, you miss the point of stamping them at all. So I'm playing around with a little bit of placement. And then I will stamp these and heat emboss these as well. Now, I could have die cut the Pop Art Fancy Dies from Hero Hues cardstock or pattern papers or other cardstock, whatever you want to do there. But I really wanted my signage to match the rest of my card perfectly, meaning I've colored everything in with Copic markers. So I will be die cutting the components for my Pop Art Fancy signage with from white cardstock and then coloring in with some of the same Copic marker colors I've used, and then a different green color combination as my tree. I wanted something with a little bit more of a limey undertone, and I like how that works with the rest of the imagery on my card. Because I have a little bit more die cutting and coloring work to do, I opted to go ahead and take my car image and cover those windows with crystal lacquer, so that can be drying while I'm working on the rest of my card. We'll just set that out of the way. And then take our Copic markers and start coloring in the signage. What worked really, really well is I use a glass mat to color on, and that's going to be super easy to clean with either stamp cleaner or rubbing alcohol or something like that, because we're working on a glass surface and I'm able to wipe away those marker lines or any ink of any kind very, very easily. So the top sign was colored with reds, and then my next sign is going to be colored with yellow greens. Now, something I want to mention is I should have cleaned my mat before starting to color my sign, because I was getting red into what I was working on. So I did stop, clean that up, and then come back to finish coloring in my sign. For the rest of the components, minus the long sign, that's going to be some cool gray colors, but for the two little round circles, I thought it would be much easier to actually color the cardstock and then die cut the cardstock than try to color in those little circles, which I'll show you here in a second. I'm going to take a quickie glue pen, add a thin line of glue to the back of my sign, and then we are going to glue that right to our background. Then I'm going to remove foam adhesive that I've already placed on the back of the car and pop my car in place. This is the focal point of the car, so I want to kind of have that centered right underneath the Merry Christmas. And then we've got gift packages that we're going to figure out placement. Some are attached directly to the card base, some are popped up with foam adhesive. Just whatever would give the most natural look there. So much fun. I will be popping up this red portion of the signage. I'm going to pop up all of the little signs, I guess, on the pole there. I don't want to attach the green sign until I've stamped an additional sentiment from the main kit on that. We've adhered our tree with foam adhesive. I'm going to take my yellow marker and just color a little scribble there on my cardstock and then die cut that with the yellow, or with the circle die. Now, originally I was going to put that up on the top, and I opted not to do that. I did remove that pretty quickly I just wasn't loving how that looked. And I instead decided to use another one of the Pop Art Fancy dies, more of a star shape, that I'll die cut from some of the silver kind of foil cardstock included in the main kit this month. You'll see that here in just a little bit. I did add Sending Warm Wishes on my green signage with the Embossing and Watermark ink, and I heat embossed with the white embossing powder, using some tweezers to hold on to that to keep my fingers away from that hot tool. And then we'll place that sign, which I absolutely love. And that's the little star die that I'm going to use. I like that a little bit better, I think. And I like the yellow right next to the green. In fact, I decided I needed one more, and I'll die cut another one of those in a bit. Here's that silver foil die cut star. That actually looks really awesome. I love how that looks. We'll just color another little yellow patch, die cut that, and add that right underneath the text sign. Now it's time for finishing details, and this card is going to be all finished. So for finishing details on this card, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to take some crystal lacquer and add little dots of that to all of the bulbs on the Christmas tree. This is going to give them dimension. It's going to help reinforce that shiny glitter pen that we used on that earlier. And I'm also going to take some Nuvo Crystal Drops in Silver Linings and White Blizzard. I'm going to use Silver Linings in the sky. So there's going to be that combination of the white embossed stars and snowflakes and then these little silver droplets, which the silver ties in nicely to our silver die cut star. And then the White Blizzard, I'm going to apply that to the center of the star on our sign. And we will also use that on the bows on our gift packages so that they have a glittery finish as well. Oh, and I think instead of crystal lacquer, I did use White Blizzard on those ornaments. I forgot. Then I'm going to let that sit and completely dry. We will add this to a white side fold card base. And our retro card featuring the main kit of the month for October, as well as the Pop Art Fancy Dies, is all finished. Next, we're going to move on to our Out of This World Santa and Reindeer card. This features the Out of the World Christmas and Retro Christmas messages. So this is two of the add-ons from this month's kit. I think everything on these two cards is from those two stamp sets. I started with a 4.5 or 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of smooth white cardstock, stamped the moon image in the bottom left corner, stamped a mask, trimmed that out and masked off the moon, and then I'm going to apply my same 3 colors that I used on the last card of reactive inks, which is Lemon Drop, that's that glow coming off the moon, and then Splash and Blue Hawaii reactive inks to build our Out of This World background. I'm again going to work really hard to get a seamless, beautiful, outer space kind of looking sky, I suppose, with my inks. I love, love, love the reactive inks, and this time we're actually going to use them as reactive inks. So on the first card, I just used them as ink blending and creating that beautiful night sky with the rays. This time, I'm going to take some Hero Arts White Iridescent Shimmer Spray, and we are going to spritz the background with this to create some nice little distressed areas, and you can see the ink react with that liquid immediately, creating some nice light spaces. I'll remove my mask, and then I'm going to set this aside to completely air dry. We'll make sure our work surface is all cleaned up, and then we are going to stamp Santa and the Reindeer from our Out of This World Christmas set. And then we are going to stamp this cute signage from the Retro Christmas messages. And we're going to kind of combine these on our card here. I again have left the coloring in the video. You can find the colors of markers I'm using across the bottom of the screen. I love this image of Santa and the reindeer. I think these are really fun. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I did see lots of inspiration on Pinterest. It's really kind of cool seeing these images and things, these retro Christmas images that featured Santa kind of in outer space and all of this. I think that's just really clever and fun. And Pinterest is such a great way to find inspiration for sets that you maybe might not, you might see it and maybe not initially know what you want to do with it. I found that this is one of my favorite kits, I think, to date. As far as Christmas goes, I really love the imagery in it and was very inspired to create cards with the kit and add-ons. Love this red color combination. It's probably my all-time favorite, are 24, 29, and 39, at least as far as coloring it in Santa's suit. It is fantastic, and I'm just going to work pretty hard to get some really good shading here. I want him to be bold, bright, and definitely the focal point against the beautiful blue outer space background. He does have a space helmet on. In fact, so does the reindeer, which I kind of made Rudolph with a red nose. So I want that to look like glass, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to achieve that with the blue-green tin marker. And then when I'm completely done coloring and I have die cut all my images, I will put crystal lacquer over the helmets on Santa and the reindeer and let that dry all the way, so it has that glossy finish that reinforces the feeling of a space helmet. Some dark cool grays for the belt and shoes, some lighter cool grays for the trim on his coat, cuffs on his pants, cuffs on his jacket, and mittens, as well as his beard, eyebrows, and mustache. A little yellow for the belt buckle. This was definitely the most time-consuming part probably of this card. This card came together real fast, but Santa was a little more work. Rudolph's going to be pretty easy, and the sign is just 3 different color combinations, so I made that easy as well. In fact, I didn't share coloring the sign on camera. Those color combinations have been used throughout my first 2 cards, so I've used some blues, I've used some reds, and then some greens. And that's just to color in each area of the sign. The packages I definitely wanted to be bright and colorful, as I mentioned. I really felt like a lot of these pop art, the kind of retro Christmas vibe, was very bright and colorful, and so that's the direction I went with my cards. So Santa is just about finished. He's so cute. And here's that blue-green for the helmet that I'm just kind of pulling across the whole thing. I'm not just coloring around the edge. I pulled that across the whole thing, but I purposely used something light so that it didn't completely distort Santa's face, but rather just reinforce the feeling that it's a helmet, a glass helmet. And then there's the signs all colored in. I even added a little white highlight to parts of those. So those little white highlighted parts were created with a white pen. Rudolph is colored with E40, 43, 44, and 47. Really, really quick coloring here since I'm not switching back and forth between lots of different color combinations. Just trying to keep those spots on the back not super dark, so I did try to color around those a little bit. Little red nose, add some shading. The hooves are the darker, the E47. little pink for the cheek, and then the blue-green for the helmet. I'm just going to pull that color kind of across the entire thing. I kind of forgot, so I'm going to do that real quick. And then I've die cut my images with the coordinating Out of This World Christmas dies and Retro Christmas Messages die. Then I wanted to figure out my placement. So I played around with the placement a little bit. I need to color in the moon. This is going to be some cool grays. Kind of did a little bit darker areas in the craters on the moon. And then we're going to be ready to finish adding the rest of the elements for our card. In this case, that's going to be a stamped and embossed sentiment up near the top. We've got our sign that definitely reinforces, but I kind of felt like it was this pop art sign on the moon, kind of like they staked it in the moon, you know what I mean? And then I want the rest of my sentiments to be up at the top of the card because there's naturally just a great place for that. And then I want to add fun retro snowflakes and the like little Saturn image. I want to add all of those throughout, and we're going to do that with the embossing and watermark ink and then heat emboss with white embossing powder. Now this is a case of I kind of forgot that I wanted to do that, and I had already attached my sign with foam adhesive, and I don't want to pull that off. So I left it in place, but I'm going to go ahead and now stamp my sentiment, stamp these snowflakes, stamp the stars. And I really tried to fill in a lot of the open white space on this card. And then I'll go in later and add some Nouveau Crystal drops in gloss white and add little spots here and there. So kind of a lot going on in the background of this card, but I think it really helps reinforce the look and feel of our adorable Out of This World space Christmas scene. So now I have a real good idea of where everything is going to go. I decided to add just a couple more images down here at the bottom. And then I am attaching all of my images to this card with foam adhesive. So I already attached the sign with foam adhesive. We've attached Rudolph. We're going to attach Santa. Gives them a little bit of depth and dimension, which I really, really love. This card panel is going to be attached to a white top fold card base. I'm going to trim anything that's hanging off the edge off, and then it's time for finishing details. So crystal lacquer for the helmets, which I know it completely kind of makes them look really bad here for a little bit, I guess I want to say. They're just not super clear. But once this dries, it dries completely clear, and it just gives that great glossy finish. You could also use glossy accents. Then I'm going to use Nouveau Crystal drops in White Blizzard, which is the sparkly iridescent for the center of the little planet down here. And then the gloss white was used to create little droplets throughout the design. Finally, let's go on to our Meowy Christmas. And I opted to do a little bit different inked background, even though it's the same basic technique. I did start with a little bit smaller cardstock panel. This is 4 inches by 5 1/4, inked with Fruit Punch and Taffy Reactive Inks. I am loving, loving, loving the pink backgrounds and the pink Christmas cards this year for whatever reason. Really drawn to them, but I thought it worked also especially well for a retro Christmas card. And we're going to ink this, and we masked off the bottom so it could kind of be the ground for the scene we're creating, which we are using the Meowy Christmas and then this great bold print background add-on for our card. Now once I have the background inked, this time we're going to actually take our background and place it in a MISTI with our line print pattern. And we are going to stamp that in the background so it's a subtle tone-on-tone look with Taffy and Fruit Punch Reactive Inks. Meaning this line dot pattern is going to just be very subtle, but the background isn't going to just be inked. It's going to have this fantastic look, and it really has that retro vibe, and I love how this turned out. So I'm using my MISTI so I can stamp it multiple times. In fact, I kind of inked it up with the Fruit Punch first, then I'm going to ink it up with Taffy, and I'm going to do that a couple of times because I want to make sure this is nice and bold. And as it dries, it's just going to be really subtle, but it gives that fantastic kind of wallpaper-ish looking background to this design. We can pull off our mask, and then we are ready to stamp our images for our card. This time I'm going to do a little no-line coloring with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. So I'm stamping my images with the Ink on 3 Fade Out no-line coloring ink on Bristol Smooth cardstock. And I am only stamping the cat, the chair, and the 2 gift packages right now. The clock, and those are all from Meowy Christmas. Our tree is actually going to be stamped and embossed with a sparkle embossing powder in a little bit, and then we'll color in the ornaments on the tree because I really wanted my tree to be a sparkly white tree. The clock was an afterthought, and I'm so glad that I used it on my card. I knew that there's that open space up above the cat, and you'll see that when we get to putting the card together. And I just wasn't happy with that open space at all. And I was looking through all of the add-on stamp sets and the main kit stamp set, and I saw this fun retro clock in the main kit, and it just was perfect. It was perfectly proportionate for this card, and it definitely had the right vibe. And so I did stamp that with the Ink on 3 Fade Out No Line Coloring Ink as well, which you'll see here in a little bit, and colored it in with this blue and English lavender Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and added to my wall right above the cat's head, which just rounds out this scene so perfectly. I like to kind of trace out my images with my darkest marker, and then I pull that color out with the lighter marker and the blender if I choose to use the blender. So the chair is kind of, I know the color was called blue, but I love that color for not just blue, but if you combine it with English lavender, I definitely think it gives a little bit more of a purple vibe. And I was really going for a pink purple vibe for my card, as well as all colors. This little star is going to be the star for the top of our tree, colored with yellow and bright yellow. And then we have our adorable kitty cat that I colored with blacks. So this is our grays to make it appear black, which is dark gray, gray, and light gray. There's really a lot of inspiration too, I think I probably mentioned earlier, for cat retro cards, which I think is really fun. There's several more inspiration pieces that I really hope I'm going to try really hard to get to with these add-ons, because I think they're just really fun. And I know all those cat lovers that friends and family I have would probably love a cat themed card, and I just think they're really fun. Now the scarf around this cat's neck is going to be colored with carmine red and light carmine. The insides of the ears is going to be pink haze. The nose, I do think I did a little peach pink to make that just a little bit darker. And then I took a fine tip black pen to draw in detail for whiskers, for the mouth, for the eyes. Faces are always super important. With no line coloring, I always try to really be conscious of making sure the faces really shine. After I color and blend the scarf, I'm going to go back with my carmine red marker and draw in some stripes for a stripe design. For my single gift package, we are going to color this in with light green and yellow green, and then peach pink and sugared almond pink for the bow and ribbon. Really, really bright and colorful was the name of the game here. Now, I did have to stamp that the stacked packages twice, because the first time I colored it in, I don't know what I was thinking. The whole time I was coloring it, I was like, I don't like this. This is not what I envisioned. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me to do rainbow, because rainbow always makes me happy. And so I stamped it again, and I am going to color in the stripes on that bottom package in rainbow color, in kind of pastel rainbow color, and I absolutely love it. So we've got the peach pink, sugared almond pink, carmine red, light carmine, bright yellow, yellow, light green, yellow green, light blue in the blender, light violet in the blender, and we're just going to repeat those colors. And instantly I was kind of almost here, and I'm like, yep, this was definitely what I needed to do. So I love how this turned out. I think it definitely adds the vibe that I want for my card. And then the package on top, I actually opted to do light blue in a blender and then light green with yellow green. And then we want to die cut these images with the coordinating Meowy Christmas dies. Also, with the green bow and ribbon around this top package, I did my coloring, I did my shading, and then I'm going to go back in with light green and draw in some stripes to give that a little bit more interest and texture. It's one of my favorite things to do. Love these images, so much fun. I've also stamped my Christmas tree on the Bristol Smooth cardstock using the Embossing and Watermark ink, and we're going to use the Hero Arts Sparkle Embossing Powder to emboss our tree on this cardstock so it's sparkly. And it's going to be sparkly white. It's going to just have some little flecks in it. I really love this little tree. I think it's very, very fun. Then we can color in the bulbs on the tree with our Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I'm just using a single color for everything, definitely bright and colorful. Rainbow is the name of the game for this card. And then we want to die cut this with the coordinating Meowy Christmas die. The base of the tree is greens, by the way. That's light green and yellow green. And then we're kind of ready to put it all together. The piercing tool from Spellbinders works really well to pop out all those little pieces. I love that Hero Arts was so conscious of that, so it has all these little die cut pieces, so it really helps reinforce that tree feel, which I think is fantastic. And then I've got my sentiment from Meowy Christmas, best wishes for a bright and happy holiday. And this is something I talk about a lot, but I prefer not to use a black sentiment if I'm not really having a black outline anywhere else on my card. And this is definitely a case of that. I think the black would have really detracted and taken away from the feel and vibe of this card. So I used Taffy and Fruit Punch Reactive Inks for the sentiment that really ties in perfectly with the rest of the design. I've attached my tree with foam adhesive, and then I'm adding crystal lacquer to the bulbs on this tree. This is where I added the crystal lacquer, so that they're going to have that great glossy dimension. We've added our package down here. I put foam adhesive on everything here to pop it off of the inked background. So with our chair, we're going to put the cat on the chair, and there's only going to be foam adhesive behind the head of the cat because that's the only thing that overlaps the chair. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So I made sure that I figured out exactly where the cat was going to go, put a foam adhesive square behind the head, and then glued him the rest of the way in place. Here is that clock, little blue and English lavender. We're going to draw in some lines with our black pen. We're going to die cut this with the coordinating clock die from the main kit, and then pop this in place right there above the cat's head to finish off our final card share for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these retro Christmas cards featuring the October 2019 My Monthly Hero card kit and add-ons. The supplies I use to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. If there are some more cards using the October kit and add-ons that you'd like to see, please leave me a comment in the messages, and I would be happy to share those later on this month. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you never miss a card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.